Welcome back to another episode of Winning the Moment. Today we have an amazing story from a firefighter who's been in it for, 25 years, all the way from working in a fire department in Ogden to being out in LA County. He shares some of his most crazy endeavors, and he gives an awesomely beautiful definition of success. Be sure to stay tuned to the end. You're going to love Brendon's story. Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And most importantly, enjoy the episode. Honestly, I think it's fine just to keep that story going because it's a good story. But
God, I don't know if I dare record that one.
Well, not the first part. So for everyone who's listening, we're jumping in. This is my friend Brendon Hunt, firefighter. You're in LA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear some of those stories. But so we were just in Vegas together for Lovers and Friends. It's like Fire Festival 2.0. I know that you were in the Facebook groups and stuff. So did you ever end up hearing anything more about?
First of all, you're not supposed to out me right out of the gate for being in the Facebook groups. It's just something I do. But I mean, in all fairness, I think I was the greatest resource of information.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't have even known. I would have shown up because I would have had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, that was actually comical because it was these people from all around, really the world.
Oh yeah.
And they were just like collaborating outfits and collaborating, like, you know, how to go back to their what the best ways were to sneak in alcohol. I mean, some of these people, their creativity was really honestly inspiring. So.
Did you ever hear about any other conspiracy theories around, like, was it really just built to,
no,
I couldn't imagine what the purpose would be.
You know, in all fairness, I quickly removed myself from those Facebook groups after everything was canceled. But no, I didn't hear anything about that. Just at the end of the day, yeah, that was going to be a really good show.
It was going to be awesome.
Dude,
I still have my playlist. I listen to it every day. So for the listeners, that was the Lovers and Friends concert. It was like if you know good music, then you know all the people.
Absolutely.
Akon. Oh man. Usher. Was Ludacris going to be there?
Yeah, Ludacris.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, it was going to be amazing.
Like some early 2000s hip hop and rap.
Yeah, the best time of music. 112.
Snoop Dogg. I mean, let's not forget
Cream.
Snoop Dogg. That was who I came there for.
And then, what was the other guy? Method Man.
Don't worry about that. I'm just a distant member of NWA.
So we're sitting. So we're sitting at dinner that night. This was Friday night. The concert's on Saturday. It's got to be like 10 o'clock at this point.
Yeah.
Concert's supposed to start the next day. And Brendon is like, "Oh, guys, it's canceled." And none of us really believed you because you're kind of a jokester anyways, you know. It turns out it was in fact canceled. Yeah. And so we went, and so the night was kind of like, what do we do now? We ended up in the Gatsby at Resorts World, that little lounge or whatever.
One of our favorite places.
So after you guys left, we still had to fill the tab. So it's like, and I asked the gal, and she's like, no, you still got $150 to spend. And I was like, then you didn't charge us or something, because so... And we had that, once you guys left, then it was just like us on that couch. And so this like random lady was like, can I just sit there? And I was like, yeah, you know, like, why not? So then her whole group ended up being with us.
Okay.
And then we ended up buying them all drinks because we weren't going
to spend the money.
Yeah, we weren't going to get there otherwise. And they had on their bracelets. And so they had paid for the VIP and everything. And it was like this trip that they had planned. And so they were like just distraught about it. And then some tweaker comes over. She's like walking by and she's looking at me and she's whispering. And I'm like, I can't hear you. Like, are you talking to me? Like, I wasn't. But she was whispering while yelling, like, you know. And so she sits down and just interjects in our group and then doesn't leave.
Oh my God.
And so I finally got the tab. I paid it, and I told the people with us, I was like, enjoy this. And good luck.
Yeah. Good luck with this new addition to your friend.
Oh, man, she was crazy.
Yeah.
So, funny story with Brendon. So, Brendon's wife, Talisha, introduced my wife and I 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And I never saw Talisha again from that day.
Yep.
And then, what was it? 3 years ago?
I think it was, 3 years ago.
3 years ago, we're in spring break in Cancun, one of the resorts, and they always set up those like gift shop thingies somewhere, you know, to buy all your stuff. Yeah. And some gal's like, Megan? And it's Talisha, and she's with you, and I've never met you, never met your daughter. Yeah. And then that was like day 2 of the vacation, so we proceeded to spend the rest of our vacation together.
It was honestly like the perfect setup.
100%. Fast friends.
Yeah.
It just clicked like that.
It was awesome.
So it felt like we'd been friends forever. And so now we've been able to have a friendship for a couple of years. And you told me some hilarious stories about being a firefighter in LA that I thought the audience would get a real kick out of that. But I would love, did you know you always wanted to be a firefighter your whole life? Was that like a thing you wanted to do?
Yeah, I would say, and that's pretty common in the fire service. At least it was, when I came into it.
I mean, that's a job as kids that you aspire to.
Yeah. So my dad was a fireman.
Oh, he was.
Yeah. So ever since I was pretty much right after I was born, my dad became a fireman.
And where was that?
Up in Ogden.
Ogden. Okay.
And so he worked up there, and I grew up as a kid in the fire station, and that's really traditionally how it was for a long time. And luckily that a lot of that tradition still is around.
Yeah.
But so I grew up, going to the fire station for holidays and birthdays, if my dad was working, or I grew up in that whole dynamic and that whole culture. And so from a young age, I mean, I remember anything that had to do with being a fireman, I wanted to, a part of it. Yeah. Like I remember and that, I was born a long time ago. But even back then, like they had like this firefighter, Halloween costume and I still remember I don't even have any idea
I think I had one of those, and then you had like the red plastic firefighter
you
hats.
Looked real good too. I can guarantee it. So I mean, and then even like as I was like old enough to actually go to work with my dad, like while he was working, go on calls with him and stuff, like it's funny now because we have these kids that come with their parents or sometimes just we call them ride-alongs. And I'm just, honestly, I try my best to remember that I was that kid once because, oh my God, it can be so annoying.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like just this little pest, always like all up in your shit the whole time, everywhere you go. And I know I was that kid, like as a 14, 15-year-old, just thought I knew every little thing. And these guys probably I look back now like, oh my God.
There's something nostalgic. I mean, obviously you guys put your lives on the line for us, but like we went and did the firehouse tour in Bryan Head because they opened it up and like did a tour and showed them the fire engines. And it just is so cool, like, and when you go to New York and you go past a fire station, you always want to see it. And it's like, my kid just loves it instinctually. He just thinks it's the coolest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and that's how I was as a kid too.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was the coolest thing that my dad was a fireman. I wanted to be just like him. And I thought it was anything that had to do with like the fire engines, like anytime we saw him in the parades or driving down the street.
Yeah.
Honestly, at a young age, like even though I was that annoying pest of a kid, that I see now, just the sense of ownership and pride that you get from that.
Yeah.
That's pretty widespread. That's been one thing, that's maybe been a little bit different, and it's probably something that's different in today's culture but it's been a little bit different or not as, well received, I guess I would say, working in, cause the places that I work in LA, I like to be busy.
Oh, because you're saying you're kind of like a villain almost versus like a hero?
Yeah, I mean, the fire station I work at now, it opened, it's probably like 13 to 15 years ago.
Okay.
And it's predominantly black in that area. I work in East Palmdale right now. And I've been there for the last few months, and it's predominantly a black community. And this young kid at the park right next door to the fire station had some sort of medical emergency, went into cardiac arrest. The fireman came over, tried to revive him. Long story short, he ends up dying. And,
no!
And of course, it's this fire engine of 5 white firemen that come over, and they see that as like a contentious situation. And we still see some
really
that incident,
even though you're there to save his life.
Yeah. Just the fact that they didn't. They actually the next day they went to pull out of the station to go on another call, and there was like 8 or 9 just big dudes standing out there with guns, blocking them from leaving the fire station. Their fire station was being shot up all the time. So there are some, because
they thought that you guys didn't care enough to save the kid.
Yeah, and it's been interesting growing up in like a relatively sheltered Utah life.
Well, because how long were you a firefighter in Utah for?
I was a fireman here for 15 years up in Ogden, same place my dad worked.
How old were you when you started that?
Well, I started in the field when I was 18, right after I graduated.
So you just went right into it? Yeah. Like field as in like wildfires?
No, I actually worked on a private ambulance up there in Riverdale. And did a lot of stuff because it's and even it's even the same way still today, but it's a really competitive industry to get into.
Yeah.
And
because it's such a great job.
Yeah. And so a lot of people get their start in other avenues, like, the route to becoming a fireman for a paid professional fire department usually starts with becoming an EMT, or,
Sure.
or you're doing like you said, wildland stuff. And then you start to segue and have more opportunities in fact, you can't even really test to work for a fire department unless you're an EMT or, have other certain certifications and qualifications. So that's when it started when I was 18. Very soon after that, started working at the fire department, and been doing it ever since.
What was the highest spot you got to in Ogden?
So when I left there, I was a captain. Okay. And, so that was an interesting, it's funny. It's almost like I've, in more ways than just my career, lived two separate lives.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting.
I think about that even with Megan as we look back, because we've been together now for so long. And it's like we had this time we lived in Phoenix together. And it's like that seems like a whole different life altogether. No kids, both working full-time jobs. Like that's one life. And then there was like our life in Houston, Texas, when we only had Olivia. And like that was a life. And then now we have our current life. But they all feel, even though it's the same life, they couldn't be more different from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and during that time, I was, my whole heart and soul was, my life was being a fireman and everything that included. And, I mean, I was married I always say I accidentally married this girl, but all things have their purpose. But anyhow, so I was, and I had, my two boys with her.
How long was that marriage?
7 years.
Oh, that's pretty substantial.
Yeah, it was.
That's probably longer than most marriages today.
And so, there's a lot of statistics, that go back to, divorce and whatnot since we're talking about my job, then in the fire service particularly. And I definitely fell into that,
just because like you're away for such long periods of time,
there was it's certainly not, I can't blame my job. Yeah. But I can there's a lot of factors, but I can certainly look back and say, because I made my job my life back then.
You were married to your job first.
Completely.
That makes sense.
There was one point in time, and some of it was money driven, because firemen in Utah, it's getting better now. But when I started, 20 plus years ago, firemen in Utah didn't make enough money to just work one job. And at one point in time, I worked 4 jobs.
No.
And and I really loved it. Like I loved it, but it wasn't until
loved being busy.
I loved being fully committed to doing everything that like the fire service had to offer me.
Oh, okay.
But in doing that, it wasn't until I lost everything that I was able to actually see, where that, why making the fire service my life, created so many other bad qualities that were what should be your life. And you see that today, like
perspective's weird like that, because you can't have it until something forces you to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I'm grateful to have that perspective now. It certainly doesn't make me perfect, as you've probably seen, but
better.
But it's certainly given me a better perspective and helped me, and where I see it now is, when guys retire from the job, and a lot of guys do 35 years on the fire service.
So what are they retiring at, like 55-ish?
Yeah. That's kind of a target age, I guess you could say. And when they leave the fire service, it's like, and I get a degree of this, but when they leave the fire service, it's like, part of their heart's ripped out, and and a lot of people have a hard time, not showing up on Big Red every day. Right. And they can't, you see a lot of marital issues, suicide, mental health issues that stem from, multiple things, but one of those factors being that their job was their life.
Well, and it's so different, your job, because you live there.
Yeah.
So you're sleeping there, you're having meals there, you're breaking bread with your brothers, like it's absolutely a different, no other job do you have that level of camaraderie in the way that you guys do, where you really actually are family. Companies say, oh, we're a family, but it's like you all go home at 5. Sleep in your own beds, eat dinner with your family. Like, you guys are doing it together.
And there are, and you even like have that exact term brother, your brother in the fire service, or now sister really too, but you can't exclude that. But, you know, it is because that there was a recent, I think I had told you in Vegas about how this fire station I worked at for 7 years caught on fire.
Yeah.
Did I tell you, told you a little bit about that? And there was somebody that I used to work with that worked there for a period of time. And when that happened, he came to me and was like, that morning it happened. I'd been out on another call, hadn't heard about it yet. He came to me and says, "Hey, did you hear about, 164s? That's the fire station I worked at." And I said, "No." And he says, "Yeah." He pulls up a picture and it's on fire. And, and he's like almost immediately jumped into like cracking jokes about it.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, because I've lived a portion of because a part of that firehouse was a part of my life and had some very substantial and impactful things happen during my life while I was there. It was, and he could tell immediately I wasn't amused.
You weren't into the joke.
No. And that was kind of, I was telling that story to somebody else. I said, that's the difference in someone who comes to a fire station to work and someone who comes to a fire station and has part of their life there. And
that's interesting.
And so there is like a work-life attachment that's unique to that job.
Well, and yours is probably different too, your level of attachment, because you did grow up in it with your father too.
Absolutely.
So then there's like a generational impact that you have.
But I find that when what I was kind of talking about before, when there's like not a separation of the two, or the job becomes your life. Yeah. Is that and it becomes a problem, mentally or impactful to your family, whatever it might be, is the separation that I clearly have now is that I love my job. I truly think it's the greatest job out there, especially in the blue collar world, but my job is what I have to provide for my family. Yeah. And so whatever I'm doing there with work is based on how I can best provide for my family. And that means that, and that was it's funny, I go to work now and sometimes I'm there for like 6-8 days. Yeah. And people are like, "Man, I can't believe you can be away from your family for that amount of time." And I always try to tell them, like, the funny thing is I'm home now. I'm home now way more than I've ever been my whole adult life, and way more than I ever was when I worked and lived here. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things about that. One, I always tell people the best advice I can give you is be where you are. Yeah. So if you're at work, be there. Yeah. That doesn't mean like texting your wife or your spouse all day and like living in like whatever's happening that's not there. And when you're at home, be with your family and don't let your brain be preoccupied by all the other shit you have going on, right? So I couldn't agree with you more. Be where you are. And then the other part of that is when you are working a regular like 9-to-5 job, even because when I had my marketing company, I would be gone a lot of time. But those was working at like baseball games, was in the evening. Yeah. And so it's like I was home when my kid was around. Yeah. Where if you work like a 9-to-5, you maybe have 30 minutes to an hour as they're getting, and that's chaos anyways. They never know where their socks are, and you only ever find one shoe, right? So you're getting ready for school, and then you get home at 5, and then if it's a school night, you have maybe a few hours before bedtime. So it's like, you may be here, but you're only getting maybe 3-4 hours a day, where now when you are home, you get that whole day. Yeah. And it's like, and kind of like to put that full circle into what I see that as is, because now Brighton is, almost 9 years old, and she like looks at that. She has a harder time with me leaving to go to work now. And being able to remind her like how special it is that when I'm home, I'm home. I don't work another job. Yeah. I take her to school. I pick her up from school. That's a huge deal. Together, and a lot of dads, by just how the natural business world works, don't get the opportunity to do that. And some people might not think that that's a big deal, but to me, those are really cool things that I get to do with my daughter. Whenever it's like a parent involved thing at school, it's typically me that gets to go. Yeah. And I'll be the only goddamn dad in there. Yeah. Which is, I'm not, no knock on anyone else. Yeah. No knock on any other dads out there. It's just that I have the ability to do that because of my job. It's interesting. I heard this, I heard it, so I don't know what you'd call it because it's not a quote because I listened to it, but this euphemism maybe. And it said, it's very challenging to be a man because everyone wants you right now. Your job wants you right now. Your wife wants you right now. Your kids want you right now. And we do have this like innate desire to provide. And so then you have to go do that thing that allows you the opportunity. We're tugged in many ways. Yeah. Yeah. I'd totally agree with you. I'd say one thing that kind of sparks in my mind when you say that is funny because, I think that a fireman's spouse, and in my situation, my wife, I think that they are overall fairly unique in that, like,
it takes the right person to be able to handle that, right?
It does. And, you know, I've been a fireman the whole time I've known Talisha, which is, oh God, this is recorded, so that's right. But
long enough.
About 14 or 15 years. Yeah. And so she doesn't know anything else as far as our relationship together.
Right.
But both of us are pretty independent people. And she even though loves when I'm home, she also loves when I'm at work.
Yeah.
In fact, that's my gauge on how long I can be home, like what stretch of time I can be home for. Because it's like, God, 6 or 7 days starts coming around. I can tell she's tired of me.
She's ready for you to go.
Yeah, yeah. And on the flip side of that, when I'm gone for 5 or 6 days and come home, it's been something important for me to learn and exercise.
Yeah,
is that when I come home, shit's already running like a well-oiled machine. Like, I'll come home and like it's this big joke in our house now, thank God, because it used to be like this point of contention.
Yeah.
I come home and like open up the dishwasher and I'm like, I can't believe how the dishwasher's loaded, you know. and that was like, funny enough, that's a stupid thing, but I just have my way of doing it. She has her very unorganized way of doing that.
That happened to me last week, or this week is Monday. My sister came over for dinner.
Yeah.
And we had something that was on a bowl, I can't remember. And so she puts her bowl in the dishwasher and I'm like, the fuck are you doing? And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, so, it has like the things for a reason. Yeah. The bowls go like this.
Yeah.
So she put it this way. And I was like, have you never put a bowl in a dishwasher? She's like, I don't really use them. I was like, you're 24. Yeah. Like, you've obviously put bowls in dishwashers before. Yeah. Like, who failed you?
I know. Well, it's funny because, when I go to work, it's like, I'm a problem fixer. But that's my job. Literally, people call the fire department and other, emergency workers when shit is going south.
That's what you do.
And kind of the general idea is that when we show up, things progressively start to get better.
Yeah.
And so it's hard as being in that dynamic for a period of time, even for firemen to go home every other day.
Yeah.
When they come home, not being the problem fixer, and it's something stupid, the dishwasher doesn't even fucking matter. Like the dishes are going to get washed and it's fine. Yeah,
but it kind of matters.
I know. No, I get it. Trust me. You and I are on the same page there. Yeah. It does matter.
I get what you're saying. It's not worth having a fight with your spouse.
And when I come home, realizing that everything was running just fine without me.
Yeah.
Everything is like, I don't need to come home and start fixing how my daughter's acting. Yeah. Correcting how my wife loads. Just the dumbest shit that you could imagine. But and I can't tell you how grateful I am for that, because when things go south that are a bigger deal, even though sometimes she does need me and leans on me to help, orchestrate fixing things. And it does seem like the big things happen when I'm out of town.
Yeah, of course.
But she does really well at just seeing it for what it is, figuring out how to fix it. Sometimes if she needs my help, she'll ask me.
Yeah.
But it's, a lot of credit to her in that we both live our lives very well in that, dynamic. And that's not for everybody,
Yeah, so. No, 100%. My, Emily, who works for us, her husband is, a fire chief. And so I think he maybe just got to retirement, but then he picked up something new. Yeah. But for a minute, it was like, he may be home. She's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with him.
I know. Like, that happens a lot. That happens a lot. Yeah.
I'm not used to this because they've been together for probably 30 years or something like that. Yeah. So it's like, that's such a shift in your relationship to go from intermittent time together to like, oh, I'm here all the time. Yeah, even your comment of like Brighton's behavior, it's interesting because even like I've been home, but Megan is for sure the main provider and caretaker for her kids, right? Yeah. She's worked part-time or intermittently, and so she's taken on that role and responsibility. And so even I have to respect, like, oh, I would probably do that different, but you're here every day. Yeah. So who am I to, maybe I wouldn't do it different if I was here all the time.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Just got to let them have that one.
I know.
Okay, so then why did you go to LA? So you're in Ogden for 15 years. So what took you all the way out to LA to be a firefighter?
So I had a really good career in Ogden, and
Ogden's awesome too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. We fought fires. We had a lot of medical calls, which is not what I'm in the fire service for, but unfortunately 85+% of the job.
Is that true in LA too?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Probably a lot of drug stuff.
And of course, so I work for one of the biggest fire departments in the country, and we have 176 stations and 5,000 people that work there, and so, and that includes LA County is a very diverse area. You could have the beaches of Malibu, which is really nice, and some really nice affluent areas.
And Skid Row.
Typically where I work is Huntington Park, South Central, now in East Palmdale, like there, and so there's a wide range of calls based on the demographic of people that live in those areas. And so it's been completely eye-opening from day one since I started working there. But back to your question, I had a great career in Ogden. I was really involved with training on a national level, really, and was traveling all over in the period of time when I told you I had multiple jobs. I always had at least 3 jobs. And those other jobs were jobs that would, and it was really cool at the time, but it took me all over the country training other firemen and different emergency responders. And so I'd interact with these big fire departments, like teaching like in New York or in Texas or up in Washington, wherever it might be. And I'd like see the potential that was out there that I felt like.
Oh, that's what opened your eyes to like there's bigger.
What was out there.
Yeah, more opportunities. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so it was like, this was quite a while ago, maybe 15 plus years ago. But I remember we had a basement fire. This was up in North Ogden, and we're sitting there, we pulled up, I was driving at the time, and the 2 firemen are about to go inside. And there's this guy standing on the front lawn. He's wearing an LA County, what we call a brush jacket, and he's wearing a fire helmet. And they're like, "Who is this?" The guy. Like, who's this guy? He's yelling at the firemen, like telling them what to do. Yeah. Well, it turns out, long story short, this is a really seasoned captain that worked. He's retired now, but he worked for LA County Fire at the time. He lived up there in Ogden, still lives up there. And anyway, got to know him. He introduced me to the whole concept of the commuting fireman. Yeah. And that was kind of my first instinct in like, hey, I think I could do this. I think I could go there. And then,
were you married at the time with your first wife?
I mean, I definitely hadn't met Talisha. Okay. So there's a possibility I was, but either that or newly
in between.
Divorced. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, it was definitely in that first part of adulthood, if you want to call it that. But anyway, decided, and then through some other training and interactions with some people that worked at LA County Fire, I decided that's really where I wanted to work. And then, so it's a long process. There's a lot of politics and a lot of different things that I experienced in getting hired there that I wasn't used to. Sure. So I'd kind of actually given up on it. Thought, this is such a strange hiring process. I don't understand it. And come to find out, everybody that like lives down in Southern California is completely familiar with it. And that's just normal for them. Normally, like when you're test or want to get hired at a fire department here in Utah, you test, interview, do that thing. That's like a 3-month process. And that was like a 2.5 year hiring and testing process. 2.5 years? Yeah.
My Lord.
Yeah. So it's like I say, I kind of like.
Are they paying you guys in Bitcoin? Like what's going on down there?
Can't talk about that. So anyhow, I'd kind of given up on it.
So it's hard to get then. Because who can even who could even wait 2.5 years?
Well, I know when I tested down there, the initial like written test that you take to qualify to be hired, there was like, I want to say between 10 and 15,000 people there taking the test.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Wow. So you're like a gem.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, you have.
I just happened to play my cards.
1 in 15,000. That's well,
now you
good.
can kind of see if you start there. Yeah. That now you can kind of see. The possibility of a hiring process actually taking that long.
Damn, that's crazy.
So, and they're in no rush. So, yeah.
That's incredible.
So anyway, it was interesting because the time I decided I was going to go there till the time I actually got hired was about 7 years. And so by the time I actually got hired, a lot had happened in life, and it took a lot. I mean,
that's almost a decade.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah. I mean, that's like longer than any career trajectory I can think.
Yeah, but I wanted...
It's like being a doctor.
I wanted to go somewhere where I could do anything I wanted in the fire. Yeah. I'd seen what was out there.
Yeah, and be challenged and have every day. I'm sure every one of your days is not the same.
It's every single day is different.
So you already migrated down south to St. George, or was that, no, did you do that because you knew you were going to LA?
Yep. So that was another reason is, as you know, Talisha's family's all from down here. I hate the snow. I should say I hate living in the snow.
Yeah.
And
I like to visit it.
Yeah. So, and there was a lot of things that happened in mine and Talisha's lives that were kind of like, it was it's interesting to look back now, but it was, us changing and making a complete shift in where the trajectory of our lives were going. Yeah. It was all part of that whole big process.
Fell into it.
Yeah.
So when you go out there, do you drive or fly?
I drive.
Most of the time?
Most of the time.
Because we used to have a direct from St. George to LA, but we don't have that anymore, do we?
No, yeah. And if they could get that back, it'd be great.
That'd be awesome for you.
They had talked about, I had seen things.
Was it in COVID that we lost that flight?
It was, yeah. It was a really expensive flight anyway. So it's only about a 6-hour drive for me to get to most places in LA County. Yeah. And so it's really a good place. There's a handful of LA County firemen that live in St. George, or the St. George area, I should say.
How interesting. Do you guys ever carpool, or
no?
Because your schedules are too different,
and it's so like spread out. Like some guys work in what they call it the high desert, like Antelope Valley is kind of the area.
Because that area itself is so huge.
So you could work up there. You could work down all the way down to Malibu or Inglewood, those types of areas. So you're so spread out that carpooling really doesn't make sense. Yeah. Did you get your Tesla because of those long drives? I did. Yeah.
So you just don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And you
so
just
I could
chill.
just sleep. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that car has some good history with us.
Yeah. Okay, so I got to know, what's the craziest fire you've been on? Like, have you ever been scared? Did you ever think like, oh, fuck, I'm not getting out of this?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and funny enough, that wasn't in LA. That was when I worked up in Ogden. There's a lot of basements in Ogden. There's not a lot of basements in LA. There are some, but
is that more dangerous, basements?
They're all dangerous, I would say, but a basement fire presents some unique challenges.
Because there's less exits.
Yeah, and so myself and other firemen made our way to the basement. The fire was burning pretty good in the basement, and that's essentially just a principle as simple as that heat rises. Yeah, and it's always looking for more oxygen. And so if you can just take that simple principle and then realize what a stairwell is, it's essentially just a chimney. Yeah. And these are superheated fires, and so and if
the stairs go out.
Yeah. So we're making our way, we get down to the bottom of the stairs, and I just remember the other fireman, he was like twice my size, this way, not this way. And, anyhow, he like kind of turned a corner, and I just remember seeing the room was about what we call flashover, which is essentially where everything in the room reaches its ignition point and it all catches on fire simultaneously. Oh my gosh. And I remember I looked in there, and it was getting I remember feeling the air in my mask getting hot, which was something that I had felt before, but not like that.
That's a sign of like, you got to get out.
Yeah. And so there's nothing that can protect you from that. And so I remember I grabbed him, and we both fell backwards.
You're saying if you were in the room when that happens, then you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I don't think I realized how bad of a place we were in till afterwards. Yeah. And I remember my mask, it looked like it was like wet. And I remember I almost like wiped it, which like, funny enough, in the moment I wasn't thinking about it, but I knew already about firemen who have died because their mask starts to melt. It looks wet. And so they wipe it and essentially wipe their mask off. They wipe the plastic that's on there off, essentially. And then, you obviously have no protection, airway protection at that point. And so I remember it got foggy. It looked like it had water on it, and which happens a lot in fires, from steam, water. And I remember thinking of wiping it, and for whatever reason, I didn't. My room flashed.
Goodness.
It was super, super hot. We had a hose line with us, cooled it down, and we ended up putting the fire out. But that was probably, if I could call one fire the closest fire to our, and honestly, when it was happening, I wasn't thinking like, I'm going to die.
You were just doing your job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I've been on a lot more and a lot bigger fires in LA. Yeah. Haven't had anything that sticky.
Is there anything like not fire related that's been scarier in LA where you were in like a precarious position where you're like, this could get bad?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
God, you love the juicy
yeah,
stuff.
give the audience what they want.
You love the juicy and the dirty stuff.
Yeah, they're here for the tea, man. Let's give it to them.
This was actually, I guess I guess I just call it during the COVID era, if you want to call it that. But
yeah,
I
had to imagine that was because there was riots and all that stuff. Yeah.
And so I worked for a long time in what's called the Watts area, Watts, Florence area.
Well, and I know that like during that time, especially police were vilified.
Yeah.
And so did you kind of get in that bucket just through proxy or was it really just about the police?
There certainly wasn't as big of a there's always been a separation and people, even like hardest gang members, they're different towards firemen than they are police.
Sure. You're not going to arrest them.
And so I would definitely not say that the firemen have had to go through some of like the
things the police officers do.
Yeah, similar hatred and issues like the police, especially down there in LA,
I'm sure
are still going through. Which has totally changed police work, and it's been interesting.
Well, and they've restricted so much of what. I mean, part of me just wants to move to LA and just like steal $900 worth of stuff every day because, like,
I know,
if you can't, like, it would be hard for me to pay if I know that like there's no ramifications if I don't.
It's honestly unbelievable.
You know what I mean? Like, I saw a funny thing that a guy made everything in his store like $995, which is like then illegal, like even a box of crackers. Yeah. But if you come pay for it, he'll give you a discount.
Yeah.
So then it's like $4.
That is awesome.
But that way to stop everyone from stealing his shit, you know?
Yeah. And I wish I'd like to think that would actually stop people, but it's like, and there are smaller police departments within LA County that I've worked with.
Yeah.
Who are still like pretty aggressive,
trying to police.
Yeah, they have a little bit more. They don't have as much oversight from like, let's call it what it is, liberal oversight that like LA County proper has, and you know, like we will go on a call sometimes, and to their credit, you know, like a lot of times we get like a patient they'd call us because he was suicidal.
Yeah,
and a lot of times those people don't need police involvement, or they're looking for police involvement for, you know, police assisted suicide. And so sometimes we'll wait on those calls for like 2 or 3 hours when we're like working with LA County Sheriff.
Yeah.
But if we're working with one of those smaller police agencies, like the smaller municipalities that work within LA County, they'll still break down the door and drag the person out. Really? So, and amongst other things. But
interesting.
Yeah. But this call in particular where you asked me about, something that was like, you know,
a little scary.
Yeah. It was actually a car. This car was street racing, going down a pretty busy street. They ended up losing control of the car, smashed into a bank, and it ejected like
like a bank.
Yeah.
Like a money bank,
not
like
a money
bank of
a wall. Literally like a U.S. bank.
Yeah.
You know. And three of them, they were all teenagers. 3 of them were ejected. One of them was balled up in the backseat. All of them had been killed in the car accident.
Oh, Jesus.
And so they have this thing down there, and I don't even want to mention it because I don't want people here to latch onto it.
Yeah.
But it's called the Citizen app. And what they'll do is if something's happening that's police or fire or, you know, whatever, people are going to want to see it. They start recording live. And there's all these people that are like,
so you can go into the app and watch it.
Yeah. So and it happens all the time. And so in this particular area, again, it's predominantly black. It's like the south central part of LA. Like, you know, everything you hear about in like those rap songs we were about to listen to in Vegas.
Palmdale.
Yeah. and these kids that were killed in this car accident were all black, and 3 of them were laid out on the ground. And we're still trying to cut this last one because we don't know if he's alive or dead.
Yeah.
And so that's what they see. They see these people start congregating.
Because there's just those 2 guys laying on the ground, passed away.
They're filming us and see us doing nothing. But of course, you know
they're deceased.
Right. We want to try and find people that are alive still, and or that we can help. And anyhow, pretty soon, one side of the street, there's 50 to 100 people standing on that side of the street. And then here's the emergency scene. And down here, there's the same amount of people standing over there, and they're just closing in on us. They're getting more and more mad, yelling at us. People are running in there trying to tell us what to do. And there's like 3 or 4.
And you're already in a tense situation without that. And you're trying to potentially save someone's life. Yeah. And then you got to be worried about like.
Yeah. And you get this, I've changed in this regard, but you do have like this overly confident sense of like safety. Like, oh, they can't hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely way more forward with people at work than I would be at home.
Sure.
If that makes sense. And so in this dynamic, you know, you kind of, then all of a sudden we realize that we need, you know, police there. There's 3 or 4 of them. And
wow,
it a lot of times there's definitely, I mean, there's other situations where you know, like that situation was like, holy shit, we're stuck in the middle of this.
Yeah.
And they're mad at us.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? And kind of our best defense is getting Big Red and drive through it, you know?
Yeah. Right.
Which sometimes, you know, that's kind of our mindset. That's what we would do. And so that was pretty sketchy.
Wow.
I was definitely, because it kind of came on all at once.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's been other situations where, you know, we had the police chase a guy right behind our fire engine, shot him 20 feet from our fire engine.
Oh my gosh.
And, you know, so there's people that, there's things like that. And honestly, it's funny because those are the things that come to mind.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been other situations where it was equally as.
Do you guys have to do a lot of stuff with like the homeless issues there, like at Skid Row? Do you guys get called on those for like overdoses and things like that?
Skid Row in particular is like in LA City. So LA City Fire covers Skid Row in particular. But Skid Row is just Skid Row because that's what everybody knows.
Yeah.
There's a huge homeless problem there.
It's crazy.
And I'd say depending on where you're at,
well, you see those videos.
80% of the calls you go on are homeless people. Wow.
And you see those videos, people driving through, and it looks like a third world country. It's just like,
really
what are
does.
we doing?
Yeah. I won't tell you what we call we call them urban campers. That's one of the terms, but it's really interesting because they
so many hazards because they've got drugs and their stuff catches on fire.
Well, and on top of that, the cartel and it's kind of the local gang that basically represents the cartel there. Just like, you know, all the old school rappers, you know, all the gangs, they own streets essentially. And it's still that same way. But now what you're seeing down there is these gangs that own the streets and people want to come in and put up tents and, you know, broken down motorhomes and all these other things. They charge the homeless rent to put those up.
The gangs do.
The gangs do. And you'll see like this piece of wood on the side of the road that says, you know, pay Carlos, you know, here's his number type thing. And so we know like when payday comes, when like rents due, because the people who don't, they light them on fire. So you'll see these big homeless encampment fires.
No shit.
Yeah.
They evict them by fire. Gosh, LA should take that lead.
Well, the funny thing is they don't stop living in them. They just clean up what they can, put tarps over the top of it and keep living in them. That's crazy. So you guys are going out there and putting those fires out. Yeah. Those are kind of a nuisance more than anything.
That's what I'm saying.
I like the big buildings on fire.
Man. What would you say is the number one cause of fire? Like when a big building goes up or a house goes up, what's usually causing that?
Oh God. I'd say down there, that area is fairly old, like, and there's newer areas, but I'd say there's a lot of, I'd say electrical. Yeah.
Old electrical
issues cause a lot of problems. Also, like alternate heating or like, you know, non-code compliant heating.
Sure.
Can cause a lot of fires. And so I'd say that's probably the majority of where things go south. And people, depending on the area, if it's, and what's funny about what I'm about to say is like, so what I'm about to say is essentially the more poor areas that I work in, some of those poor areas, the homes are really unkempt and really messy, hoarders and just like the most disgusting conditions you could possibly imagine, but it's a roof over their house, over their heads. And so they do whatever to stay in there. Some of those really poor areas, especially like the, Hispanic areas, like they take really good care of their yards. They keep their houses clean. But it's not uncommon in Mexico to heat your house with the gas cooktop. You know, so they'll run the house with a gas cooktop or things like that. They light a lot of candles, and so there's a lot of things like that impact how big fires get.
Sure.
And it's just the age of the buildings too.
What they're made of.
Yeah. There's a lot of old commercial buildings like in the area where I had worked.
Because the old commercial buildings were built with wood back in the day, like instead of steel and stuff. So I'd imagine that those are.
Well, and they're still built, you know, there's still a lot of wood in construction, but and I would actually say the structures built, in the 50s, 40s, 30s, those are actually more structurally sound when they're on fire.
Really?
Than newer buildings.
Interesting.
It's a common thing. They call it conventional construction or lightweight construction, and newer lightweight construction is what's, cost and energy efficient.
Yeah.
However, it's not built to hold up against fire. So,
because once it gets hot, it just collapses.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things like that, like if you look at a 2x4 from the 60s, it's actually 2 inches by 4 inches. If you look at a 2x4 now, I mean, what is it, like
not that
inch and a quarter by 3 inches? And so that alone, like there's just a lot of factors like that we still call it a 2x4. Kind of
bullshit that was.
It is, yeah. I know whoever pulled that off.
What's so interesting is I knew in my mind that 2x4 meant that, but then I also knew in my mind that that's not what they are.
Not at all.
But I never really connected that it was at once that time, actually.
Yeah.
That thing.
Yeah. Nothing is. No lumber is. And I bought like some 1x3s the other day, and I'm like, this is like a 1/2 inch by not 3 inches.
How interesting.
So, but yeah, so that those are all, it's, in the fire service, I always tell people, or new firemen, the two most important things they can learn as far as the job goes is building construction and fire behavior. And that's because that's really what kills firemen, is building
not understanding the situation.
No, well, even some of the most seasoned, knowledgeable firemen can get caught in it,
Yeah.
But having a better knowledge and understanding of it certainly has helped me.
Yeah.
Not be in those situations.
Do you think now that Talisha's been with you for so long and you've been in this career the whole time you've been together, does she still get nervous when you leave, or is she like got that scar tissue where she's like, you always come back?
I think that both in some ways.
Yeah.
I think that she's always make sure my life insurance policy is up to date, no matter what. I think I have seen her get nervous though.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get on fires that are long, and like I have it's like an important thing for me to like tell her good night before I go to bed every night.
So she knows.
And realistically, I know it sounds stupid, but like I just would hate if something happened to me and I hadn't told her good night and I love her.
Yeah, of course.
And then in the morning, I'd tell her good morning.
Yeah.
And so there's been times, and it's typically in the morning. Well, it could be morning or night, but if she doesn't hear that from me,
then she's nervous.
Yeah. Like there was a time, and all it was we were on a big commercial building fire that was like 9 hours long, and I didn't have my phone with me, and she started like calling my coworkers like, "Hey, I haven't heard from Brendon. I can't get a hold of him."
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think that the nature of the job, depending on like or like something that like doesn't feel normal to her.
Yeah.
Her instinct is, as should be, that something could be wrong.
Yeah. Were you around during the Malibu fires?
I was, yeah.
Did you work on those?
I was on that fire.
What was that like? That had to be wild.
That was it was a different level of there was
what year was that? Was that 2021?
It was like 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Okay.
5 or 6 years ago.
It's somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah. But I mean, down there, it's interesting because people ask, like up here, if you're fighting brush or wildland fires, they're like heavy timber out in the forest, BLM land. There's not a lot of houses. The reason that you see a lot of houses that get burned in what we would call a wildland fire and what we call brush fires down there is because the houses are built in the brush. They're built like neighborhoods, subdivisions, and whole cities are built in the brush.
Yeah.
And they get Santa Ana winds. They get superheated, fires that are fueled by wind. And that's what that was, 100+ mile an hour winds, 10 miles of fire just blowing straight to the ocean. And it did exactly that.
Wow.
So it was interesting. It was, you want to talk about a third world country after you go in there, like the next week, start, like, putting out little fires, and just these massive mansions just burned to the ground.
That's crazy. How long was that one going for? I went for a while, right?
Well, to be honest with you, like those fires blow through so fast that like that one, it burned everything it could in a matter of like 2 or 3. There was other smaller fires that were starting along the way, but the main head of the fire blew through in like a day, really, because once it gets to the water,
ran out of stuff to burn. I was in Bryan Head when that fire happened, and so that was like the closest I've ever been to like a major fire.
It's and that's so like you look at like Bryan Head, for instance, and that's a community built in high timber or heavy timber, and like that's a place where there's potential for a somewhat relative incident like that. Like if there's people up there vacationing and, it's obviously not going to happen in the winter, but the summer, especially with like how they're talking about Bryan Head developing into more of like that, summer resort town as well. That's a place, here relatively close that you could see something like that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild to be up there for that. What advice would you have to, if like there's a young listener out there who wants to be a firefighter like yourself, what advice would you give them? You already said like for seasoned, learn fire habits and building construction, but what about for someone who's just getting started? What would be your advice?
Oh man, let's see. As far as like how to get there,
they want to be like
I think pretty much. Oh shit! Don't do it. I'd say one of the most important things when it comes like just the logistics of checking the boxes to become a fireman. Yeah. You pretty much have to be an EMT, and so like they have classes. So start all with over that. The place. Yeah, get your EMT. The one of my biggest regrets is like I look at these guys that are like 21 years old that are getting hired at LA County, and for no better way to put it, you just make a lot more money and give yourself a lot better lifestyle doing the biggest thing you can early. Yeah. And
so like get to one of those big cities and work to get on there.
And I'm not saying, there's a lot that can be gained from working at smaller fire departments, and you're getting experience, you're getting your feet wet. But make your career what you want to make it. Yeah. But figure out what that is as early as you can.
Go after it. Yeah. In St. George, because I know there's a lot of volunteer firefighters. Do we have like a full-fledged fire department?
Yeah, I don't know if I should talk about that publicly. I think that there's a lot. I've had my eyes open working down in LA. There's this, the way I see it is essentially fire departments in Utah, and St. George falls into this category entirely, is they came from a place where it was started as volunteer, and everybody was volunteer. And they did that for a long time, and they protected things, as best they could. Yeah. But these guys are out working, as plumbers or electricians.
Yeah. Like my father-in-law, he owns a glass company. He's been on the volunteer firefighter for like 20 years. Yeah. So he has to like stay Monday nights at the firehouse and gets on calls. And
And in my opinion, with what St. George and Washington County,
we've outgrown
it. We're doing the citizens a disservice. Sure. By maintaining that type of environment. That type of.
I mean, we got over 250,000 people here now.
Yeah, and the infrastructure that's here. I mean, there should be no volunteer fire service.
Really, and more fire stations probably.
I think there's plenty of fire stations. There's just nobody in them.
Interesting.
And so
how many full-time, do we have full-time firefighters?
There are full-time firemen here all throughout Washington County. And I think it's just hard to let go of what you knew to work. And there's a camaraderie that exists in that volunteer service. Sure. But in my totally forward and honest opinion, we're doing it's a disservice to the citizens to not have full-time coverage in all of these areas. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of firemen that work in LA County, and when somebody calls, you get a lot of people that show up, even if it's a stub toe, and sometimes it might be overkill. Sure. But better to be safe than sorry. We always have enough. And there's times when I know for a fact, there's times where in the busiest parts of St. George and Washington, there's only 2 firemen showing up on a fire engine to your fire. And so, and I'm not saying there's not other people coming, fire engines coming, but 2 people on one fire engine doesn't do anything. Yeah. It's if
that's your house on fire, you sure as hell don't want that.
You better fucking hope you got sprinklers in that house. Yeah. So, I'll try and not go down that tangent.
Do you want, would you, seeing what you've seen, would you put sprinklers in your house?
Absolutely.
You would? Do you have sprinklers in your house now?
No. But if I ever built one, I would.
You would?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes without saying for anybody, no matter how good their fire protection is.
Yeah.
But it's, here particularly, and it's not their fault. They're good firemen. Yeah. But the problem is, you got to live within a certain distance to this area to be a fireman. Yeah. And I work almost 500 miles away from where I live. But you got to live within a certain distance to be a fireman here. And the pay doesn't equal the cost of living.
There's no way
to support that. And so what happens is you get firemen that work, like, let's say they work at St. George City full-time, and on their days off, they go work part-time at Washington City or one of these other
municipalities.
Yeah. And so it's just a convoluted mix.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I wonder how big we have to get before they look at it and say, we got to fix this.
It's already there. No questions asked.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And the problem is you can't really do it. These fire departments need bodies, and you got to be able to pay them.
Well, I was going to say, because how would you, like, here you've got this whole resource of skilled, qualified firefighters, but to get you guys to not drive 500 miles, it'd be a significant financial investment, you know?
And it's funny because I've seen, like, and I was in this type of, this was how it was when I worked here in Utah, differently than when I work in LA. We have a huge budget, over $2 billion in LA County.
That's your budget is $2 billion
for the fire department, but over
annually,
$2 billion.
Jesus.
But around 80% of that goes to salaries, wages, and benefits. And so what you see here is
so that's what I don't think I can comprehend the math, because that's not 160 million. That would be even more. It's like 960 million.
Yeah. Whatever you say, I believe you.
Around 80%. Now I kind of got to do the math on that. I wonder if my calculator can do 2 billion.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's $1 million.
If that's the iPhone 15, you can do it for sure.
I can't. I can only do 200 million.
Oh, wow. Okay, I lied. Well, this is what I'll tell you is that you see, and I am all about bright red, brand new, shiny fire engines.
Yeah.
But that's where the money goes.
That makes sense.
They build these brand new.
You're saying here they do.
Yeah, I mean, and on the flip side, we let a lot go. Like the fire engine I'm in now is it's a frontline fire engine. It's 2010 with 189,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And you wouldn't see that here. You look at, and they look good. They look real good. But so in my opinion, there's a lot of things that I've been able to be privy to and see how, you know what, you can actually drive this fire engine that's a little bit older. You take good care of it. I mean, most fire engines down there rack on the miles really quick.
Yeah.
And where I'm at now, I mean, we put 150 miles on it a day.
Wow. And you probably run for office here and fix it.
Yeah, that would be completely out of my wheelhouse. I appreciate your support.
I'll vote for you. How much longer do you think, until you're done?
Let's see. I turned 42 next week, so what's that?
13 years?
13 years left.
You'll go to 55?
Yeah.
Do you guys have
and not a day longer.
Really?
Absolutely.
Do you get like a pension? Do you have like an old school pension?
Yeah.
So you're just getting paid?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's
55 is young.
It really is. I'm not saying I'm going to stop working, but I definitely will most likely be done in the fire service.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, you
why work?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest
you got Talisha for that.
I agree. You know what? I've offered many times to be the towel boy at the med spa, but she's not having it. So maybe that'll be my time.
That's great.
Can you imagine just this 55-year-old? I mean, I'll look good because she owns a med spa. But,
right.
But
yeah, you look young. Have you ever done Botox?
I don't know if that's for this show or not. I've been talking about the fire service. No, proudly I have. Yeah.
You have?
Yeah. It's and honestly, like Talisha, so we have these
you look great.
We have these great parties. One of the nicest things about that camaraderie fire department is we have like some killer holiday parties. Like the Christmas party every year is, one of the greatest things to look forward to.
Yeah.
But the problem is that's when Talisha, gets a little loose-lipped and decides to tell all these guys I work with that I get Botox. And I haven't fucking lived it down since, which I don't care. I'm like, it's fine. You're 25 and I look better than you.
Yeah. Well, hell, now you just told the whole world. So
that's completely fine.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple questions before we wrap up. We're right there about the time, but you've read Winning the Moment, right?
Yeah.
Biggest takeaway, any aha, anything that you think is worth sharing?
I think the biggest thing for me when you kind of wrap it all up, it was interesting reading a book from somebody who I knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
which
I definitely now idolize you because.
Oh, thank you.
But like, you think about like, we've talked about book reading and like how that's
we're both pretty avid readers.
And like when you get a book and like you hear about, or like you hear an author on a podcast, it's almost like kind of creates this like, like they're famous,
Yeah,
like
sure.
Big things. So like reading these stories that you're writing that are like, this person I know is like, it was so interesting to
it's different.
This is a guy I know writing this stuff right here. But I'd say overall, the biggest takeaway was the importance of, the biggest thing for me was that the ability to shift whatever you're doing in life.
Yeah.
And when the opportunity arises, having the courage and vulnerability to shift gears and go a completely different direction. And I mean, it's probably the most relative thing to me because I've seen that happen in my life multiple times. Yeah. On a personal level, financial level, whatever it might be. But that's probably the biggest thing. That was probably the biggest thing for me was the importance of being able to see those moments when they arise. And
because if you're not present, you'll miss it.
Absolutely. And I've missed plenty of them.
Yeah.
And so,
it's interesting because you don't know you missed it until you're far enough ahead of it. Like, it's too late.
If I would have done that, then
right.
Absolutely.
That's a great takeaway. Okay, well, what's your biggest win you've ever had?
I would definitely say my family.
Yeah.
I'm first and foremost. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what do you like to do in your spare time? And it's like, I felt like I should have had more. Like, I love fly fishing, golfing, racing cars. Like, but I truly love being with my family. And, and that's taken a lot of really hard experiences that probably are most likely my fault for having to go through them.
Sure.
But what I am first and foremost is a husband and a father.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's certainly, and I hope it will always be my biggest win in life.
Well, and the thing is, we're the conductor of our lives, good and bad. So it's like the bad things you experience, you're responsible for those, but you're also responsible for this awesome family you have. You're conducting both of that. And I think it's commendable and special to have that because that's what matters. I think if there's anything I've learned in like this life that I've lived so far is those like your unit, your family, and the things you do with them are the most important things. Yeah. Like you think like I got to do this or I got to do that, but the one consistent is that little group is always going to be there for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then on the opposite of that, what's your biggest loss?
Oh, let's see. Is this an job interview? I feel like I should be more prepared. Honestly, my biggest loss, I would say, I lost my son, Rylan.
I figured that's what you'd say. Yeah. I almost hesitated to ask you because I didn't want to make you have to go to that place.
No, I'm not afraid of it. It's actually been one of the greatest teachers in my life. But 3 years ago, my 16-year-old son, Rylan, passed away in a car accident. And I would undoubtedly would say that is my biggest loss. And it's funny because you think of loss as like, when you say that, like on the base level, like, or on the surface level, I should say, that's like, typically you would look at like, what is it in life that you lost, like in a financial sense,
like lost a job or lost his business opportunity.
And there's a lot of components to my relationship with Rylan and there was a lot of things that I was really looking forward to.
Was he your oldest son?
Yeah, he was my youngest son. So he was 16, almost 17 when he passed away. And so that it's funny because like anything that I've had a lot of, I've had a lot of difficult things to go through in life, just like anybody else.
Sure.
I certainly don't classify myself as like being special because I've had to go through all these hard things, but the hard things I've had to go through in my life that I can consider a degree of loss, and especially with Rylan, I'd always choose to have him here. Yeah. But there are things and there's lessons and approaches to my life now that I would not have without having lost.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it makes you a better father. Just because
I like to think it does.
How could you not? Because you know what it's like to have that loss when you could never. I can't know it. I don't know what that feels like. I don't want to know. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's funny because like people like I would say the same thing, and I hear of other people losing their kids or a relative in some way that I'm like, man, that sounds. I feel bad for them. Like, oh my gosh, can't imagine going through that. And the thing is like as human beings, I've learned that we actually are capable, and like we can't imagine it, but I think that it's been impressive to me to realize that we as human beings are actually capable of dealing with the hardest things that are unimaginable.
We'll always get through it.
Yeah.
We're not just going to disappear.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, the sun's rising tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so you got to figure out a way to get through it.
Yeah.
Something that's really cool, since we're in this personal space, is you guys have a baby on the way, a baby boy, which is super exciting. Yeah. And isn't your baby boy's due date like Ryland's birthday?
Ryland's birthday.
Is that not the serendipitous of the universe?
Yeah. If he tries to come early, that'll definitely be like baling twine. Like
stay in there.
No, but it's interesting because
that's a special thing.
It really is.
My
mother-in-law, she's lost two of her sons. She's lost her husband, and she would always like talk about these signs. That of of these loved ones that are gone now, these signs that they send her. And I honestly, like, until I lost Ryland, I'd just be like, oh yeah, whatever.
Sure.
It's just a random feather. It's just this, but there's certainly things that, and I'm not a religious person.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it's not that I like have a problem with it. It's just that I don't need that to know that wherever Ryland is, is a really amazing place.
I love that.
And so when things like that happen that are like, and there's been things that are even like just as
powerful.
Yeah. To those reminders of like that they're still with us.
That's what I was just going to say. He's still with you. Do you have any interest in like seeing a medium or trying to connect with them in that way at all?
Funny enough, like I used to make fun of my mother, not make fun of, but I would just.
You probably made fun of her. It's
maybe,
okay.
yeah. Well, and my wife as well, but like,
yeah.
But now it's like, because, I'd give anything to have some sort of communication or like understanding of like beyond.
Yeah.
Now like I think about that.
There's this gal that we've had come to her house. I can't remember her name. Megan knows her, but she's awesome. Awesome medium, reads palms. Like, wow. So if we get together, we could have her come over.
You think she'd be able to do that? Like with my half finger, she wouldn't throw her off at all?
Well, we'll challenge her and see what it means. Maybe there's a hidden message there.
Funny enough, like I
think it's fascinating.
Well, I'll tell you this about mediums. Okay, so right after Ryland died, my father-in-law was sick with pancreatic cancer, and he took he made a really big effort to take our family on trips together because he knew he wasn't going to be around for very long. He took us to, at this point, it was still pretty early on. He took us all the adult kids and their spouses to Newport Beach, and we got a house right on the pier, or right on the boardwalk, and had a great week. Well, one of the days we all went to Pelican Hill and golfed. The guys all went to Pelican Hill and golfed. And that day the girls had a medium come in. And, I remember there were some things that, came from that. That they honestly actually made me mad because Talisha and I had like a big blowout fight afterwards. And I had to admit that I was mad because these people had this connection with Ryland that I didn't get to have. And something happened there. Something happened there with Talisha and that was like undoubtedly Ryland communicating with Talisha. And I know, like, anybody listening, like, it just doesn't sound real until it's you in a seat like mine. Yeah. But I remember, like, feeling so sold short because I didn't get to have that, and they did. Funny, huh?
No, I mean, I totally get it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let's do it. Let's set it up.
I'm totally in.
I'm okay. I'm texting Megan as soon as we're done. Okay. We're getting it on the calendar. You tell us what your work schedule is.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Fuck yeah. Dude, it's amazing. Because when someone does, and I don't think that every time, I don't think that if she comes with you, you're guaranteed to get it. Like all the things have to be right. I think you got to be in the right space. Just everything has to happen. But when it does, I think it's very healing for the person. Because like my Megan's mom lost her brother. And he's come in sometimes, and it just gives her that like, that reassurance, And so I think let's do it.
Okay.
I'm in. Sold. All right. So last question then, how do you define success?
Let's see.
No right or wrong answers because it's just your definition.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I would say.
Isn't it an interesting question?
It's loaded because there's so many different parts to success. But I would say that success to me is daily, like whenever, at any point in life, being at the place that you want to be.
I like that.
And if there's something that day if there's something that leaves you wanting more, getting to that place is success. And I think that that's a lifelong like
pursuit,
hunger.
I love that you said where you want to be that day, because where you want to be is not always the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, I woke up today to grind. Like, I'm ready to put in the work. And some days you're like, I'm ready to just binge like a show.
Yeah.
And traditionally we would say binging a show is not a successful thing to do.
Yeah.
But if that's what you wanted to do that day, I think we lose sight of the fact that we're in charge of our lives, and we think we're supposed to be sometimes I feel guilty because I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this. It's like, says who?
It's so interesting.
Fuck that. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. That's the beauty of being a human, you know? And so I think giving ourselves the grace or permission to just pursue the things we want to pursue, even like this right now, doing this podcast, it's noon on a Friday. It's like, there's probably more productive things I could be doing, but this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm here doing this thing, and we're having this beautiful conversation. And so it's like, even though monetarily I could have probably spent this last hour and a half in something that's more productive, I would rather be here doing this. And so under that definition, it allows me to feel successful doing the things that I want to do. Yeah.
It's the reason that like I personally, like when you make me think about that right now, it's like I got to bring it down to like a day-to-day value, is because like, so I'm reading this book right now, Scarcity Brain.
Oh, sounds interesting.
Michael Escher.
I haven't heard of it.
Great book. But a lot of the basis of the book is our constant want for more.
Can't get away from it.
And the evil in that.
Yeah.
And then where that is actually good.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
And so like when you talk about
two
success,
sides of that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Because
otherwise we get stagnant and die.
Yeah. Yeah. And like there's chapters in there where he talks about like, it's really interesting, like knowing your like love for Vegas. You'll like this part where he goes and talks about like gambling and whatnot, and like how like the science behind it.
Yeah. We're conditioned to like, I just got to get that win.
Yeah. I mean, but when you ask me about success and like thinking about that like, there's this constant strive for more. And sometimes success is like fairly simple.
Yeah,
you know,
it can be, certainly.
And I'm learning that. I'm certainly not a master of that. But.
Well, I like it too, because success is kind of like happiness, where you get it and it's fleeting. Yeah. You can't get there and fucking live there.
I know.
No one's living happy, right? Like you have moments of happiness, but you can't live in happiness because that's just not how life works, you know?
Nothing.
And so, because like even if everything's going good and then I get pulled over for a speeding ticket, my happiness plummets, you know? And so it's like, it's one of those things, and success is the same way. You can have like, maybe today I close a big deal and it's like, yes, this is awesome. But tomorrow a client cancels and it's like, oh, now this sucks, you know? So it's like, you can't always be there. And even the want for more, I had one of my young associates who was like, yeah, dude, I think, you know, as long as I can make 60 grand a year, like I'll have everything I need. And I was like, that is true for who you are today. But the second you make 60, you're going to be like, if I could just have 70,
I know,
you know, if I could just have 70, and it's like, that will never stop.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a number where it stops, but it's up there.
Yeah. It's way out of my reach.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
I'm not concerned about that, I guess I should say. But I learned that real quick with in the search for better pay.
Yeah.
Being a fireman.
Because then you lived off of whatever you made in Ogden, right? You had a life and you lived and everything was fine. And now you have your income here. And if the fire department said, hey, we're going to pay you what we used to pay you in Ogden, you'd be like, no,
I'm out.
Yeah. Can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, there's guys I work with that make, $500,000-600,000 a year.
Firefighters?
Yeah. And that's all they do is work, but like
making $500,000 a year.
And I look at those people and I think like they're constantly looking for more. Like, and if you have that mindset, it's kind of funny because I think it's really good to have a positive outlook and like a drive to be better constantly. But I think that I think especially with finances and money, it's like it's a fine line that you can walk to where like, nothing's ever enough.
Well, I think that's why I got to understand who you are. I told my friend the other day, I just started playing pickleball. You ever play it?
Yeah, dude. That's the next thing. So we're going to do the medium.
Yeah.
And Talisha and I are going to just smash you guys at pickleball.
Oh, is Talisha good?
I mean...
You are being recorded.
Let's just wait till wait till we're out on the court.
So I've never played. I started playing about maybe a month ago or so. Yeah. Fully into it. So I tell my friend, it's like, I found pickleball. I'm all in. It's like, that doesn't surprise me because I have that tendency to like, oh, now I'm in this thing so much. So I've really got to be careful of that for myself. And even like as I was younger, there were certain monetary goals that I thought like, if I get this, once I get that, and people I knew, like you say, there's a firefighter making $500,000 a year, I would have been like, oh, I want that. And what I've learned now is that there's a requirement to have that. And so you don't just get the money without all the work. Yeah. So it's like, you may say, oh, I'd love to make $500,000 a year, but do you want to work 80 hours a week? Because if the answer is no, then you don't want that $500,000 a year either, right? So you really got to, and I think that's where our definition will always evolve, right? If you were on this podcast 15 years ago, you would have probably given a much different definition of success then than you did today. Yeah. And I think for the young people listening, know that for yourself and give yourself, again, the grace to not feel, if you change your pursuit, that's okay. Yeah. You don't have to be stuck in that forever.
Yeah. You said that really well.
Yeah, I thought so too. We should probably flip that one. Okay. Well, Brendon, thank you so much for being here. I absolutely love the episode. If people want to connect with you, is there a way to do that? What's the best way for, if they want to be your friend like me?
I'm not your standard.
You're not selling anything.
Yeah. Just get a hold of Cody. He can find me.
And you can come join our medium party then.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you, brother.
Yeah. Thank you, Cody.